Let's get started. So welcome to our July community call. Thanks for attending. For today, I believe I guess Nakomi will go over Ben's updates on Logga, a new package that we have for logging errors in our tools. And Alex will go over the startup performance improvements in Encoda. And I'll go over some of our hub redesign updates. So we've fleshed out new designs for Stencila Hub. And Nakomi will go over Encoda and Thema progress and the roadmap. All right, so for Ben's updates. Oh, sorry, you're muted, Nakomi.
Yeah, Ben's not well, unfortunately, wintertime here, so flu season. So he's asked me to give his presentation. So maybe, yeah, I'll just use the screen there. Thanks, Jacqueline. So Ben and I started working on a little project called Logga, and it's something we didn't spend a lot of time on, but just in a couple of days we got it done. So it was a really nice, neat little project. And the reason we embarked on this is we were having this issue with how to log from libraries. So in Stencila, we've got a number of different node libraries. Actually, they're written in TypeScript. And we wanted a way of being able to emit log events for debugging, but also warning and error messages from all those different libraries, but in a way that was unified and consistent and that can be consumed by different log handlers. So there's plenty of other logging libraries that already exist in Node, but we wanted one which was really lightweight and, as I said, didn't require a whole lot of configuration. And so surprisingly, there's very little out there. I found one other library actually just last night when I was researching this a bit more that does something similar to Logga, but that hasn't been maintained for a while, and it's also not written in TypeScript. So what Logga allows you to do is to create logs without worrying about it, without worrying about where they're going, and not having to do a whole lot of configuration, as Ben says, logging with impunity. So how it does that is it uses Node's global process object as an event emitter and listener. So if you go to the next slide, I'll show you what that looks like. So what Logga does is it listens for log events, and that has a default handler. And if that default handler recognizes that you're at the terminal, then it outputs some pretty printed stuff to the console. But in the future, we might be consuming these log outputs in an Electron app, and you might get an HTML pop-up that comes up displaying these log events. So yeah, just having different types of handlers for different environments. So that's the handler that pretty prints to the console. You can see there's different levels of logs. And then this one here is for machine readable log messages. So we have the same event emitting, but this just recognizes, in this case, that you're logging to a file. And so it outputs the logs as a JSON string. And that's useful for being able to consume logs in things like Sentry and other apps where you can get warnings. Yeah, so that's pretty much Logga. Yeah, we'll be using that in a lot of our different applications, and it's also designed to be used for other log handling libraries. So we're not going to try and do a whole lot of more advanced log handling. We'll leave that up to other libraries like Winston or Pinot. And here's an example of how to integrate Logga with Winston, which is a popular existing logging library. Thanks.
Thanks, Nakomi. So Alex will go next and talk about Encoda performance updates.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Hi, everyone. So just a quick recap of what Encoda is. It's our way of converting between different documents, regardless of the formats. And it's becoming a core aspect of what we're trying to do, and kind of like a glue between some of the services that we want to integrate with. And what Nagomi noticed was that the command line application that we had built was taking quite some time to spin up before it would even start processing the documents and converting between them. And let me try to share my screen. Is it okay, Jacqueline?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll stop sharing.
Okay. And so there's an issue, number 60, that Nagomi very meticulously outlined some of the times that it was taking to spin up and start converting. And you can see kind of some of the process of elimination that we did to figure out what was causing some of the delays. And we realized that there was an easy opportunity for us to improve the speed by not requesting all the different conversion formats until we knew which format you were trying to convert between. So what this means is that we can delay some of the imports and processing of the files until it's necessary. And I'll do a quick demo of the comparison between the old startup times versus the new startup times. So you can see this is a script that is taken from Nagomi's issue, and this old version of the CLI to convert between JSON to a YAML and print it to the console. So if we run the script 10 times, and we'll record the time that it takes to complete, and you can see even as we're running, there's a long delay between when I clicked enter and when it's printing out to the console. And this is getting quite tedious, and this was what we were trying to solve. And so we'll see what it looks like within the new version once this is finished. So we can see that it's finished in about 20 to 23 seconds-ish, something like this. So let's record these numbers just so we can have a comparison. And we will run the new version, that is the latest one that we just released. And I'll increase my font size a bit. And when we run this script, you'll see that we're getting the results much, much faster. And it should finish in just under 8 seconds compared to 23 seconds. So this is a drastic speed improvement, almost close to 300 something percent. And they should really improve the usability of this CLI. But we don't really want to stop here. If we have easy, easy wins to improve the speed further. And one of the tools that we came across is called 0x, I believe. It should be linked in one of the issues. But what you can do is you can run a command like so. Let me see. And it will record your application being run and the dependencies it has. And it will generate a flame graph that you can then analyze and see where in the app which files are causing or which functions are causing the biggest delay in your app. So this is generated from the latest version of the Encoda CLI. And as you can see, we can see that a lot of the time right now, if we go up a bit, is spent in this anonymous function for Mhm. In the AJV process, where was that? Here. So this allows you to pinpoint areas in your app that are slowing the whole process down, and see if you can find ways to optimize that. Any questions about this?
Hi, Alex. I was
Hello.
just wondering, yeah, is that the flame graph there? Is that based on the most recent version?
Most recent versions. So I think that's why I was a little thrown off. The AJV use has drastically improved.
Right.
And we see that some of the it is still taking up a significant amount of time, but it's much less than I think before. It was almost like 40% or 30%. So it's much faster.
Yeah, I think the other thing to point out is when you were showing those speeds, like that was over 10 iterations. Yeah, so now we're getting, whereas it was around a 1 second to start up, which doesn't sound like long, but which can feel a bit slow. Now it's down to less than 300 milliseconds on my machine anyway. So
right. So this is if I do just one iteration right now, you can see how long that takes compared to the old one, where I think we might have a very brief conversation before it finishes. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just, I think, goes to highlight the importance that we value in Stencila for user experience, and just kind of like having a pleasant experience with our tooling.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's all from me.
Okay, thanks, Alex. All right, I will share my screen. Okay, can everyone see? All right. So I'll be sharing some updates on the latest changes to Stencila Hub, which is our platform for managing projects on Stencila, and where we've integrated the command line converters to convert between different file formats. So this is just a screenshot of the original Hub interface and the redesigned layout. So we wanted to update the Hub with a cleaner, more minimal looking interface. So I fleshed out several options using different fonts and navigation layouts. And I'll be sharing with you a version on my local machine. So this is the PR233, where we have screenshots of some of the changes. So one of the most drastic changes is on the accounts view. So previously it was a bit clunky and not as unified as we'd like. So I've updated that to follow a more minimal layout, including settings. So yeah, so that's the old one, and then this is the new one. Another major difference between the two styles is on this projects view and the file manager. So I'll go here into a project. So now we're using the updated navigation bar, and instead of having the sub navigation in tabs over here, it's now going to be under the left sub nav. And lastly, another change that we've made is to the projects view. So before it wasn't consistent with a single project or the accounts pages. So that's also an update that we've made. So these filters will now be on the left side. So if I go back, so now everything is a bit more consistent. Yeah. oh, and one more thing, and also this settings screen, which has been on our back burner to update for a while. That is also updated. So everything, yeah, everything matches a little better. Any questions?
Just a comment. Looks fantastic. It's a big improvement. So thanks very much for that. Yeah, it was great.
I'm glad.
I did have a question about just the implementation for this. So I was interested whether you made these changes in the hub or whether these were changes to the shared style that we've got in the style repo.
These are currently in the hub. Yeah, especially since we're still considering the different options or how exactly we'd abstract the styles. Yeah, this is the first iteration. So if this looks okay, then I'll be ready to pull these styles out of the hub into our style repo. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks great, Jacqueline. I had one question. I don't know if it's interesting for others, but I was wondering if you want to go into some of the process about how we go about discussing and approaching these changes.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, let me share a different screen. So I can share our Figma, and that's the tool that we use. It's similar to Sketch, but it's like Google Docs for Sketch. Let me see. Okay, so this is one way. If everyone can see, apologize if it's a little blurry. Our process currently is, well, I flesh out different options, and then we post comments on different interfaces. If we have different preferences, then we'll also discuss it. So it's all done in Figma currently. Did you want me to go a little bit more into something else?
Yeah. No. I think it just, it's easy, not easy, but it's, I think it's important to see how much, breadth there is before we start narrowing down to just single final version that you were showing. And, there is, the same logical reason and kind of thought process behind how we get there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so it's a lot of discussion before we decide on a style. Okay. Oh, I still need to share the slides. So right here. Okay, and lastly, if Nakomi wants to take over.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just wanted to just reiterate those last comments. Of those designs you've come up with, Jacqueline, look great. But to support Alex's point, yeah, there is all this work behind that often gets lost when you just see the final product. So I think it is important to show that and show that they just haven't been landed there, and the one person's invention, that there's this discussion and thought behind it all. Maybe there's a better way for us to communicate that whole design process a bit better and try and make that more open. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about Encoder. So Encoder is our project for converting between different formats for reproducible research and executable documents. So here we're talking about documents formats like Jupyter Notebooks and R Markdown, and how we convert those documents to more traditional formats for word processing like Word, while still retaining the reproducible aspects of it. Also, we can't do reproducible research without data, so the encoder also deals with spreadsheet formats and tabular data formats as well. So it's intended to be a bit of a Swiss Army knife for conversion between different formats. I think it might be easier if I share my screen, so I'll go ahead and try and do that.
Okay.
I have too many screens open, so I've got to decide which one I want to share. So in code, I'm going to flip over to the actual repo here on GitHub, and the table at the front of the README, or the top of the README, just outlines the various formats that Encoder is able to convert between. There's quite a long list here, and we're not intending to add any more formats in a hurry. Really, the focus is going to be over the next couple of months on tidying up and making more robust the various converters that we've already got here. You can see the status for many of them is still alpha. We've got some which we're currently saying are production ready, but those are more simple data exchange formats like JSON and YAML that Alex just demoed. Those are there, those simple exchange formats, because internally we represent everything as JavaScript objects that can then be converted to JSON or these other more lightweight formats for converting between. So that forms the canonical central format, and then we convert to these other formats using tools like Pandoc and Shoot.js, which allow us to leverage existing libraries for conversion. One of the things that we've been working on just in the last couple of weeks is improving the performance, like Alex mentioned. We're working on improving the code coverage. So you can see this column here has link badges with the code coverage for each of the different converters. So we're aiming for a version 1 release at the end of August with at least 95% test coverage for all of these converters. What else can I show you here? The README is slowly getting filled up with some details on how to use the tool. We've got a simple command line interface in this repo, with the emphasis being on developing the main Stencila command line interface for more advanced usage. But this goes through the options that are available here, including the option to set themes, and I'll give you a demo of the different themes that we've got, and other options like being able to generate standalone documents and bundled documents. So let me show you Thema, which is another repo that we've been working on. Now, I don't want to steal Alex's thunder here because he developed this, but we're using Thema in Encoder to apply different themes. So Encoder is the thing that converts between the different formats, takes content from one format and transforms it to the other. But Thema is used within Encoder to style different HTML outputs. And it's an interesting approach. We're generating very semantic structured HTML. So using semantic elements like article and ARIA roles where possible. And so Thema takes the approach of applying styles based on those semantic roles and elements. And we currently have two themes. One is our Stencila base theme and an eLife theme, with the intention over the next month or two to add up to 5 or more other themes for different journals or different use cases. So let me show you this in action with a Jupyter Notebook. So this is a Jupyter Notebook that we're using as one of our test cases. It's one you can see is available on the web, and it does some analysis of well water in Bangladesh It's got some plots in it. And we can use Encoder to convert that Jupyter notebook while still retaining those outputs and in something that looks more like a reproducible journal article. So if I click over here, you can see this is the default theme that Encoder produces. We're using the Stencila theme. It's the same document with plots and the text, but the code cells are hidden. I should say the actual code is embedded in the document, and in the future we will be allowing you to be able to view the code in those code chunks, but for now we're just showing the outputs. And this is the eLife theme, so this is the same document with the eLife theme applied. We've got a little bit of work to do to make these outputs that are just plain text look a little bit better, but generally it's looking like an eLife article, and yeah, we'll do some more refinement on that. I actually showed this to some of the eLife people yesterday, and they were really excited, and were offering to get some of their front-end developers to help us tweak this to make it a little bit more like their documents. I'll just talk you through some of the other codecs that we've been adding to Encoder. Recently, we've added one for DAR, which is eLife's reproducible document archive. And that's based around XML. So it has the DAR format as a folder with an XML manifest file, and uses JATS, which is the Journal Archive Tagging System, another XML format that many publishers use. And so the DAR codec within Encoder will take a collection or an article or a data table and encode them to DAR. We'll be working on the decode function soon, because we want to be able to take a DAR folder and generate HTML like I've just showed you for a Jupyter notebook. But for the moment, we've currently just got the encoding. So how that works, for example, one of the example projects I've got on my computer is one using R Markdown. So we've got an R Markdown file and a CSV file next to it that the R Markdown file uses. We can use Encoder to convert that to DAR. We just add the .dar extension to the output name, and what that codec does is creates a new DAR directory with the manifest file in it, JATS for the actual XML of that article, R Markdown, and the CSV file is retained in there as well. So we have this archive that is reproducible, but in a format that publishers are able to use and put into their production pipelines. Reproducible in the sense that it's got the article with the code embedded in the JATS plus the CSV file that is needed to run that article again. The manifest file looks something like this. So it's got the main document listed, and then the assets, in this case just the CSV, and the sync attribute indicates that this should be synced with any runtime environment, because it needs to go there for the code to execute. One of the things that we need to do is make these names a little bit more consistent with the original names. So ideally, we'd keep these names like the rodents and the rodent species CSV in the DAR names, and we would produce those to make it a little bit more obvious where they came from. The other codec we've been working on has a similar name. It's called DIR for directories, and it is able to decode and encode a whole directory. So it's similar to DAR, but it's also similar to a static site generator. So it'll read a directory of files, and they could be in any of the formats that Encoder supports, be it Markdown or docx or IPython or DAR or JATS. And it'll read that directory of files. It will see if any of them have names like index or readme or main, and create an index.html file from those. So it also preserves the directory structure. So if there's subdirectories in that directory that you're converting, then it'll keep that file hierarchy. So that's quite neat because there's plenty of static site generators around, but this one's using Encoder to be able to allow you to convert a variety of different formats just with a simple one-line command command. And we're using it at the moment for publishing Encoder's own documents, so eating our own dog food and getting it to go through the documentations and produce a tree of HTML. Then we're publishing that on GitHub pages. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to share on Encoder and Thema. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I would like to ask the people attending to maybe comment in issues or in the chat here if there's a format that you use primarily for your work, or if there's something that's missing, to just let us know, please.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, the GitHub repo is there if you want to request another format for encoding, or if you feel that we need to do more work on a particular one, and just having people try it out and see where the conversion goes wrong and where it works is really useful. We had Ranier working on that recently, and it was really useful just to catch some bugs and make some refinements. So, head on over to the GitHub repo or contact us here or anywhere. That, I think, I've shown you everything. That brings us to our last slide, which was the help wanted slide.
Yep. All right. So help wanted, please sign up to become a Stencila beta tester, and also send us ideas, examples, bug reports, documentation in any of our repos, which you can find here. Thank you. And does anyone have any last questions before we wrap up? I'm going to try to find the chat box. Thanks. All right. Thanks, Jack, Emmy, and Gabriel.
Thank you.